So for this video, I'm going to create Azure load balancer, but the standard one instead of basic SKU. So first, I'm just going to create two virtual machines, and I'm not going to put them in an availability set or in a scale set like I did for the other videos. So let me just create those two. I'm going to give them HTTP. I'm going to install IIS on them and make sure they're in the same VNet, but on the same location as East. But so I'm gonna come back after I did those two. Alright, so I have my two VMs. These are the public IP addresses. I installed IIS on both of them. So now actually we could just start the first one. Disassociate the public IP address because we're going to use a load balancer to get forward traffic to the VMs, not their public IP addresses. So let's just associate them, and it'll use the load balancer's public IP address and the VM's private IP address. So I'll go to network interface, IP configs, this one, say disassociate the public, and then let's make it a static private IP address just so it doesn't change. Save, and we'll do the same thing to VM2. Okay, let's wait. Actually, I'll come back after I do it to the second one, then we'll move on to the next thing to do, which is create the actual load balancer. Alright, so I changed it for both. Let me just show quickly just on VM2. We don't need to show it for the other one. And look, public IP address is gone. So now let's add the load balancer. So the Microsoft one. Demo VM1 group. It's our resource group. Called standard load balance. Fine. East, because that's the same location as others. We want standard. Public, because we want to be able to reach from the internet, for our IIS web server. If it's internal, if it's just your own, internal network, maybe you have some business apps or whatever you want to use a load balancer. But anyway, regional is fine. Let's create the front end IP. So front IP, and we want to create a new public IP address. So public IP, and we don't need availability zone. Let's add it, and then I'll come back after created it. Alright, cool. Now next step is to add backend pool. We could have done that while we're provisioning it, but I just want to show after it's deployed. It's being a little slow. Alright, so we have our front end IP. So let's create the backend pool. Cool. Call it pool. We want the virtual network that our virtual machines are on, and virtual machines is add, and since it's a standard, we could add them individually. They don't need to be scale set or availability set, but if you wanted to, you could do scale set. Anyway, we're adding them, and one thing to know is that they have to be in the same, region and the same VNet. But also, even if one of them is down or like it stopped, one of the virtual machines, you could still add it to the backend pool. And I'll show you that. It's going to say it's running, but I'll show you after it's ready. Alright, you see they're both running. Next is to add health probe, and like I said, I won't go into the details because I go into the details of it all in the Azure Basic Load Balancer video. Here I just want to show the difference of that you don't need a scale set or availability set when you use a standard SKU of the load balancer. So it's going to use TCP as a handshake at port 80, and after health probe we want to do load balancing rule. Alright, it's created. Called rule A. Get your front end IP. Port 80, port 80. Choose your backend pool. Choose your health probe. and I'll keep everything as is. And then we're just gonna see it work, okay? So you want to get your public IP address. And look as IS on it. And I mean, imagine actually I'll just show you. So I'm gonna quickly create a HTML file on VM1 and a different one on VM2 saying, you know, I'm VM1 and I'm VM2, and then I'll load it onto here, and you can see it switch between them two as it's distributing the load from VM1 to VM2 and acting as a load balancer. So let me do that real quick and I'll come back. Before I do that, actually, since I can't connect to it because I didn't already make the file, I'm gonna make a inbound NAT rule. So just NAT1 front end, or we could just, yeah, and want to be HTTP VM1, that one, port mapping. Actually, let's keep it custom. Port 4000 and 3389, so I could RDP into it. And yeah, I'll do the same for I'll add another rule for VM2, and then I'll be able to connect to it. So let's add a second one. Port 4001 VM2 dot custom 3389. All right. Now it's you could do it here, or you could do it in the portal. You just get the private IP, and then put in the port of 4000. Come back when it's ready. Oh, I didn't mean the private IP of it. I meant get just the front end IP because it's using the load balancer, so it's not going to work to connect through the IP anymore, through the private one. You got to use the load balancer one, which is a public one. Same thing, see? And they're both on it. So you just put that colon, and if you want to connect to the first one, it's 4000 first VM. Second one is 4001. So I'm gonna connect, and I'll come back after I make the HTML files for both of them. So it's the same thing for both of them. You just change it to 4001. So I'm gonna create the HTML files and then show the difference here. All right, and so now default.html VM1 fresh. It's supposed to switch between them, but each time I see it's only doing the first one. Like I changed it to only say VM, but it's only whatever, doesn't matter. And so anyway, that's how to do a standard Azure load balancer with everything plus NAT rules.